I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the founding fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
All right, folks, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for being with us. Hey, it's Friday, so I want to say thank you for starting the beginning of your weekend with us here at the intersection of conservative ideas and reality, where we are building a liberty machine. Phone number 870-275-9799 if you would like to contribute to the conversation today. We have, broadcasting. I'm trying to see here where we are. Joe, can you double check our Facebook broadcast right now? Make sure everything is up and going on that, because I haven't gotten a push notification yet, and that wouldn't be the first. The social media summit was yesterday, by the way. Social media summit at the White House, where the big tech giants like Facebook and Twitter were not there. They weren't invited. They were inviting people like Tim Pool, who is more, center of left center than he is anything else. But yet he is being, he is called out. He's been one of these guys who's on the left who's calling out what he sees as unfair censorship of ideas. Then you had people who were at the White House like Mark Dice. Mark Dice was there. He's got a very big YouTube following and, makes videos, and he's a social media person. It's very, very interesting stuff that's going on right now. And then, of course, while the social media summit is going on, while that's happening, while that is happening, Twitter goes down. Did you know this? Twitter was out like all over the world, but also, there were big red pockets on Down Detector as well. So anyway, it's a fascinating occurrence. A lot of people thinking, there are reports out there. Speaking of the social media summit is happening in the midst of reports that Google is scrubbing images of Bill Clinton and Jeffrey Epstein. At the same time, there are reports Dinesh D'Souza, he tweeted a photo of Bill Clinton walking Chelsea down the aisle and pointed to the fact that on one of the rows, had an aisle seat, was Jeffrey Epstein's madam, if you will, the person that was keeping everybody in check, keeping everybody in line. Think about that. Well, so people started analyzing that tweet, and you had people saying that they weren't able to retweet Dinesh D'Souza's tweet. Then there are some people now alleging, now hear me out, there are some people now alleging that Twitter has redone their algorithm to where if a tweet is retweeted too many times, it will then the retweet button will then somehow be viewed or processed as a report button. Meaning, if you report someone on Twitter, okay, it activates Twitter, and then you may be in Twitter jail or may get suspended or whatever. There are now reports out there of people saying that Twitter, if you retweet something too many times, when you go to retweet it, just an average guy, I want to retweet this, then it will actually trigger the report button. And it will say, and they're screenshots of people who retweeted, and it doesn't say that you retweeted this after they hit the button. It says you reported this tweet to the Twitter authorities. Censorship, man. I'm telling you, they're doing everything they can. Everything they can. Okay. Yeah, so we'll figure something out with a Facebook video. It appears that we do have some issues with Facebook this morning. But the YouTube is up and running. It's not like I can tell the Facebook audience that. I guess we can make a post real quick. It is Johnny Cash Friday, so we're going to listen to as much Cash music as we can, while at the same time peppering in the news of the day. We'll be doing this, the entire. We get some good stuff for you. Let's go to this first headline here. Arkansas Democrat Gazette headline: Trump gives up census fight. And this says it's compiled by Democrat Gazette staff from Wire reports, but that headline is misleading. Trump gives up census fight. Citizenship data searches new plan. Well, let me just tell you this. I heard this all over. This was on Drudge. ABC News was saying Trump's caving, and all these people saying Trump's giving up. And the only reason they say this is to try to hurt Trump's base. That's the only reason they put out headlines like this. Let's go to the White House lawn yesterday. Here is President Trump, courtesy. This is a Real Clear Politics video, and let's listen to what he had to say. It won't be the social media one. It's the other one. We're going to get to that in a minute. Yeah, here it is, right here. They actually have a decent headline of it. Listen to this.
Thank you very much, everyone. Are you a citizen of the United States of America? Oh, gee, I'm sorry. I just can't answer that question. And that's after spending billions and billions of dollars. There used to be a time when you could answer questions like that very easily. There used to be a time when you could proudly declare, I am a citizen of the United States. Now they're trying to erase the very existence of a very important word and a very important thing, citizenship. They're even coming after the Pledge of Allegiance in Minnesota. I'm proud to be a citizen. You're proud to be a citizen. The only people who are not proud to be citizens are the ones who are fighting us all the way about the word citizen. Today I'm here to say we are not backing down on our effort to determine the citizenship status of the United States population. I stand before you to outline new steps my administration is taking to ensure that citizenship is counted so that we know how many citizens we have in the United States. Make sense? We will defend the right of the American people to know the full facts about the population, size of citizens and non-citizens in America. It is essential that we have a clear breakdown of the number of citizens and non-citizens that make up the U.S. populations. Imperative. Knowing this information is vital to formulating sound public policy, whether the issue is health care, education, civil rights, or immigration. We must have a reliable count of how many citizens, non-citizens, and illegal aliens are in our country. The Department of Commerce sensibly decided to include a citizenship question in the 2020 census, as has been done many, many times throughout the history of the United States. Unfortunately, this effort was delayed by meritless litigation. As shocking as it may be, far-left Democrats in our country are determined to conceal the number of illegal aliens in our midst. They probably know the number is far greater, much higher than anyone would have ever believed before. Maybe that's why they fight so hard. This is part of a broader left-wing effort to erode the rights of the American citizen and is very unfair to our country. The Supreme Court ultimately affirmed our right to ask the citizenship question, and very strongly it was affirmed. But the Supreme Court also ruled that we must provide further explanation that would have produced even more litigation and considerable time delays. The case is already in 3 federal district courts that have been, to be totally honest, extremely unfriendly to us. These delays would have prevented us from completing the census on time.
Does it sound like he's backing
It's
down,
deeply
by the way?
regrettable, but it will not stop us from collecting the needed information, and I think even in greater detail and more accurately. Therefore, we are pursuing a new option to ensure a complete and timely count of the non-citizen population. Today, I will be issuing an executive order to put this very plan into effect immediately. I am hereby ordering every department and agency in the federal government to provide the Department of Commerce with all requested records regarding the number of citizens and non-citizens in our country. They must furnish all legally accessible records in their possession immediately. We will utilize these vast federal databases to gain a full, complete, and accurate count of the non-citizen population, including databases maintained by the Department of Homeland Security and the Social Security Administration. We have great knowledge in many of our agencies. We will leave no stone unturned. The Census Bureau projected that using previously available records, it could determine citizenship for 90% of our population or more. With today's executive order, which eliminates long-standing obstacles to data sharing, we're aiming to count everyone. Ultimately, this will allow us to have an even more complete count of citizens than through asking the single question alone. It will be, we think, far more accurate. The Census Bureau can use this information along with information collected through the questionnaire to create the official census. In other words, as a result of today's executive order, we will be able to ensure the 2020 census generates an accurate count of how many citizens, non-citizens, and illegal aliens are in the United States of America. Not too much to ask. This will greatly inform a wide array of public policy decisions.
I agree. It's not only
this
going to
information is also relevant
a wider array of
to
public
administering
policy decisions, but it's also going to hopefully give us a clearer picture so that we're able to seat 1/2 of 1/3 of our government. That's what this is really about. The only reason Democrats are able to go out there and act like illegal aliens are being disenfranchised by not being counted in the census, or if they wouldn't be counted in the census, is only because of ignorance of the American people, not understanding why Arkansas, for example, has 4 delegates that go to the United States House of Representatives. Or they don't understand why Arkansas has 6 electoral college votes. It's only because of the ignorance. This idea, and the president's really said it best. He said this best at the very beginning of his remarks. Citizenship. The left is trying to take away the concept of citizenship and the rights that you have, or the rights that are recognized as Americans under the United States Constitution. He's exactly right. He's exactly right. Go ahead and add this to the list of why President Trump got elected. And what I mean by that is the president articulates basic I would say this constructs, or we'll go with constructs. He articulates basic constructs of Western civilization that are under attack. The idea that America is a sovereign country. He's articulating that with the idea of tariffs and saying we don't have to do anything that we don't want to do. We don't have to fund NATO if you're not going to pay what you are supposed to pay. We're not going to fund NATO, or we're going to criticize NATO with Germany. They're wanting the protection of NATO, yet they do their leadership, former officials in the German government are inking deals with Russia that are essentially energy deals, gas deals that are going to make Russia rich. The president says, that doesn't make much sense. Why would you be making Russia rich if the purpose of NATO was to protect everyone from Russia? So he's essentially just coming at this with a common sense oriented perspective that, I think, quite frankly, exposes the corruption, the deeply solidified corruption, not just in America, but worldwide. And that's why everyone can't stand him. The idea that a nation should be able to control and decide who comes in and out of of the country. Okay, but I'm telling you, that is just a basic prerequisite. That's the word I was looking for. It's a basic prerequisite if you're going to have really any civilization, not even Western civilization. The president is hated for articulating basic truths about how societies establish themselves. And the left is lecturing us about transgender reproductive justice and pronoun usage. You want to know why he's in the Oval Office? That's a big reason why. And so here he is saying citizenship, it's a good thing, and the other side is trying to attack it. And he's exactly right. He is exactly right. 870-275-9799. We have to be able to accurately seat our government by counting U.S. citizens, the ones who actually vote. We'll be back in just a moment.
It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Hi, folks. Paul Harrell here. For those that can't catch Conduit News Radio with me on the radio every morning from 6 a.m. to 8, don't panic. You can always listen anytime on our digital platforms using your smartphone or computer. In this video, I'm here to help you navigate to the many options you have to watch or listen to the show across our digital platforms.
First, you can catch the show on Facebook. Just use your internet browser and type in facebook.com/Conduit News. From there, select Videos on the left side of your screen. From there, you can watch the full 2-hour show each day or select specific interviews you want to watch. Another place you can watch the show is on YouTube. Just use your internet browser and type in youtube.com. Then, in the search bar, search for Conduit News. Select the Conduit News page as it appears. While here, be sure to hit the subscribe button and hit the little bell to receive notifications when new videos are ready. From YouTube, you can also watch every live show daily and all the interviews I have with guests. More options are available at our website, conduitnews.com. Select the Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell tab. Here, you can watch each day's show live or watch old episodes and interviews. You can also catch audio-only versions of the show right here on this page of the website. For audio-only versions of the show, you have some options. For Apple iPhone users, simply use the podcast app and search Conduit News. Subscribe to the podcast and get each hour of the show automatically in your app daily. You can also download the SoundCloud app from your app store and search Conduit News to find your station. And that goes for Android users as well.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We want to make sure you get the latest on Arkansas news and politics. You have many options to know what government is doing in your name and with your tax dollars. Learn more at conduitnews.com.
Here we go. Hey, welcome back. Thanks for starting the beginning of your day with us here, the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. I got these stories here that are quite fascinating to me. Nobody talks about the national debt anymore or the deficit. Here's the Wall Street Journal headline. Government bond market measure says recession risk growing. Yield on short-term treasuries has been higher than on long-term notes for more than 30 consecutive trading sessions. Also from thehill.com. Make America's deficits great again is the headline there. So there's some media attention being paid to the first term of President Trump and spending the debt, that sort of thing. Also, we have from rollcall.com headline, Pelosi debt limit vote possible before August recess, kind of raising the debt limit again. So nobody really talks about these issues anymore. I'd like to bring in an expert. You've heard him before. It's always great to talk to him. His name is Dr. Michael Busler. He's a professor of finance at Stockton University in New Jersey, a public policy analyst, economics expert. You've seen his column featured at Newsmax, LifeZed, and townhall.com. Dr. Busler, welcome back, sir.
Good morning, Paul. How are you? It's always my pleasure to be here.
I appreciate that. It's likewise. So what do you make of these headlines?
Well, so here's the situation, and it's going to come to a head, I have a feeling, in September. So the federal government every year spends more money than they take in revenue. And they've done that in, I think, 56 of the last 60 years. So when that occurs, they have to sell bonds to finance the deficit, what they're short. There's no mechanism to ever pay back those bonds. In other words, we pay interest only on them. When they come due in 20 years, we don't have the money to pay them back, so we simply sell new bonds to pay back the old bonds. So it's called rolling over the public debt. So as a result, the public debt keeps growing. Congress has to set a limit to how much the federal government can borrow. The limit is roughly in the $22 trillion range. But we because of the continuing deficits we've had and we're having right now, we're up to the maximum. So Congress has to approve an increase in the debt ceiling. Now,
I want to say something.
In order to do that,
first of all, I want to thank all of you watching right now on our YouTube channel because there's some issue going on with Facebook. Don't know what it is. Going to find out. Probably not going to find out within this broadcast time. But we made a post over at Conduit News Facebook. I mean, the posting worked. And it seems like we've successfully navigated not all of our audience, but, some of it over here to the YouTube channel. So, first of all, guys, while you're here, go ahead and subscribe if you haven't. Click the little bell to receive notifications. And also, if you don't have the YouTube on your phone, you need to put it on your phone. Make sure you have a YouTube app. Most phones come with it, so that you get those push notifications. Because YouTube is fundamentally less interactive than Facebook, because it really is only primarily a video platform. So you want to get those. And I'm just saying, in the future, just in case this happens again with Facebook, people are saying, "Well, I didn't get my Facebook notification." Well, that's because something happened wrong with the video. We're not sure what happened with it. Our YouTube video worked fine. People who subscribe to the channel, they get their push notifications when the YouTube goes live and the Facebook goes live. We're doing everything we can. You guys have seen the ads. We're trying to do everything we can. I'm not sure what happened with Facebook, but hey, I am pleased that you guys navigated over to and you're also there's also some of you watching I can see on the actual website that does not have those of you watching on the website at conduitnews.com. There is no comment feature there. I mean, feel free to keep watching, but if you want to comment, you can comment on the YouTube channel. And the people are already sounding off and everything else. Anyway, we're going to go. We'll be back here in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. We're going to be talking with Mr. Josh Bernstein of The Josh Bernstein Show next.
It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Hi, folks. Paul Harrell here. For those that can't catch Conduit News Radio with me on the radio every morning from 6 a.m. to 8, don't panic. You can always listen anytime on our digital platforms using your smartphone or computer. In this video, I'm here to help you navigate to the many options you have to watch or listen to the show across our digital platforms.
First, you can catch the show on Facebook. Just use your internet browser and type in facebook.com/Conduit News. From there, select Videos on the left side of your screen. From there, you can watch the full 2-hour show each day or select specific interviews you want to watch. Another place you can watch the show is on YouTube. Just use your internet browser and type in youtube.com. Then, in the search bar, search for Conduit News. Select the Conduit News page as it appears. While here, be sure to hit the subscribe button and hit the little bell to receive notifications when new videos are ready. From YouTube, you can also watch every live show daily and all the interviews I have with guests. More options are available at our website, conduitnews.com. Select the Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell tab. Here, you can watch each day's show live or watch old episodes and interviews. You can also catch audio-only versions of the show right here on this page of the website. For audio-only versions of the show, you have some options. For Apple iPhone users, simply use the podcast app and search Conduit News. Subscribe to the podcast and get each hour of the show automatically in your app daily. You can also download the SoundCloud app from your app store and search Conduit News to find your station. And that goes for Android users as well.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We want to make sure you get the latest on Arkansas news and politics. You have many options to know what government is doing in your name and with your tax dollars. Learn more at conduitnews.com.
Range, but we because of the continuing deficits we've had and we're having right now, we're up to the maximum. So Congress has to approve an increase in the debt ceiling. Now, in order to do that, conservatives are going to say, look, we'll go along with you, but you've got to put a plan in place to get these deficits down and at least come closer to balancing the budget. Well, there's going to be arguments with that, too. Reducing government spending is very difficult. Why? About 70% of the government budget, or roughly a little over 60% rather, of the government budget, $2.7 trillion of the $4.4 trillion, a little over 60%, goes to things, entitlement programs, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. Politically, we're going to have a difficult time trying to reduce any spending there, so that's pretty much locked in. Another 8% or so, 9% goes to cover interest on the public debt, which we obviously have to pay that also. So that's 70% of the budget that we can't touch. That leaves 30% left. Now, of that 30%, roughly, half of it is for defense spending and half of it is for domestic programs. The Republicans want to reduce the spending on domestic programs and increase defense spending because our military has been essentially decimated prior to President Trump. The Democrats, on the other hand, say we spend too much money on the military. They want to increase spending on social programs. And some of the Democrats want to vastly increase spending on social programs when they talk about things like Medicare for all, free college tuition, and that sort of thing. So here we're going to have a big problem, I think, in September. We have to raise the debt ceiling, and we have to come up with a deal to do that both the Democrats and Republicans can live with, and it's going to be a very difficult thing to do.
Absolutely. Absolutely it is. And I guess I'm just wondering, what is your view on the national debt, the deficit, in terms of, I mean, how long can we do this?
All right, ladies and gentlemen, hey, welcome back to the show. We got a special treat for you this morning. I want you to welcome back from the Josh Bernstein Show. We got Mr. Josh Bernstein. Josh, how's it going, sir?
Doing great. Great to be back on the program with you.
Absolutely. So we got a lot of news this week about Epstein, Jeffrey Epstein, being indicted. What was your reaction when you first heard these new charges?
Well, I read the indictment itself, 14 pages long, and I can tell you first and foremost, it could have been 2 pages because there was basically 12 pages of nothing but repetitiveness. That was the first thing that stuck out to me. The second thing that stuck out to me was the fact that it was very vague in the way that it was written. There was a lot of, from the years 2002 to 2005, it's alleged that such and such happened at such and such place. Well, a normal indictment is going to have definitive language. It's going to say that on, October 15th at 2:42 p.m. at XYZ location, this occurred. There was none of that. So I thought that was a little peculiar to start with. And then, you think about the fact of the timing of this. The Russian investigation now over, and clearly there's no collusion and everything else. Then you couple that with the fact that Maureen Comey is James Comey's daughter, and she's a lead prosecutor for the Southern District of New York, and she's supposed to do an impartial, independent investigation. Meanwhile, she was seen at the women's marches. She's part of the resistance. She's a diehard Hillary Clinton supporter, and you're going to tell me that she's supposed to go after someone who has extremely deep, close ties with the husband of the woman that she wanted to be president? Then couple that with Letitia James, the Attorney General of New York, who basically ran on a "I'm going to get Trump" agenda. You put all that together and you got to ask yourself, are they really looking to go after Jeffrey Epstein and get justice for these victims, or are they looking for an opportunity to try to turn this in Trump's direction, even though he didn't do anything wrong? I guess time will tell what happened.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I have noticed the corporate media desperately trying to tie Donald Trump to this. I think they're going to fail, though. I mean, Donald Trump, even with Alex Acosta, I think a normal president would immediately fire this guy. But he takes a wait-and-see approach, seems to know something other people don't, and doesn't seem to be worried at all, the president.
Yeah, look, I think if President Trump was smart, he would ask for the resignation of Alex Acosta or fire him immediately. Regardless of what the details were, justice was not served here. It almost reminds me of James Comey basically exonerating Hillary Clinton beforehand, knowing that she was guilty, and then getting up in front of the cameras and saying, well, we couldn't find a jury of our peers to convict her. Well, you know what? That's not your decision. Let the grand jury decide. They should have rolled the dice. I believe there was enough evidence, there was enough material witnesses, and there was enough people coming forward even back then for them to do that. So I guess this fear of he was going to walk, I think is ridiculous. And, he made a bad mistake, a bad choice, and he shouldn't be our labor secretary as far as I'm concerned.
Can you talk a little bit about, you said you read the indictment. Is there any mention of the island, of this little St. James Island?
You know what? There is not, which I thought was very, very odd. It actually says in the indictment, the residence in Manhattan, then it says Palm Beach Estate, and then it says, and other locations. It doesn't say St. James Island in the Caribbean. It doesn't say that. It just glosses over that. So I wonder, do they not know about it? Are they not looking into that? Is not going to even be part of the investigation? It doesn't make any sense to me.
I completely agree. This whole thing, with the Lolita Express, the name of the plane, that everyone calls it anyway. President Clinton. So this, in case you didn't know this, first of all, folks, we're talking with Josh Bernstein. He's the Amazon TV host of the Josh Bernstein Show, national spokesperson for AMAC. Josh, this is an Arkansas-based show. We're on stations across the state. So anytime we bring up Bill Clinton, we do so with a tinge of responsibility and regret, lamentations, if you will. And, he got his start here in this bureaucracy and, arguably the most powerful political family in the world. And we almost helped put not one but two Clintons in the White House. Very, very glad that Donald Trump's president. But Bill Clinton, I mean, he's in trouble here, right? He releases a statement saying he was never at the island. There's one victim that says that she saw him at the island. There's photos circulating on the internet that show him on a plane, with his arm wrapped around a 14-year-old girl. Is Bill Clinton going to actually go down here?
You know what? I can't answer that, but you would think with 27 opportunities of being on the flight logs and at least 5 or 6 opportunities of ditching his Secret Service to go onto the island and then traveling with Epstein all around the world, it's almost comical to say that you don't know him or that you haven't been there. You know what? If the Democrats truly believed in an impartial justice and they truly believed in the justice for these victims, then they would call Bill Clinton into Congress under, penalty of perjury and basically do a hearing with him, already knowing what they know and asking him the questions and putting him in a perjury trap at the very minimum and, making him answer questions, under oath. That's what they should do. They should do that almost immediately. But, again, they're not going to do that because they don't care about the victims. They don't care about getting justice for the victims. They care about another opportunity to smear President Trump, which is why the left is already, going after Wikipedia and changing Jeffrey Epstein's Wikipedia to get rid of mentions of Bill Clinton and other liberals, and instead leaving it all there for Donald Trump, all because he said he was a good guy 20-something years ago. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and on that quote, Josh, to me, I mean, if you put yourself back in 2002, a lot of people didn't know about Epstein publicly. Maybe the elite did. But Donald Trump was actually calling him out. I mean, I've said on my show, can you imagine if you're Jeffrey Epstein and you read that New Yorker piece back in the early 2000s, you'd been pretty mad about that, considering he's a secret pedophile and he's doing all of this stuff. And they're trying to make it seem like it's some sort of anti-Trump quote. Now, a pro Epstein, when in reality, Trump gives the compliment but then gives the jab. He did the same thing when Hannity asked him about Clinton. Hannity, said, "What do you think about Clinton?" He said, "Oh, he's a nice guy, but he's got a lot of problems with the Epstein Island thing coming up." I mean, it's the exact same, template. But
yeah.
You can respond to that, but also respond to the other elites out there who are very, very nervous right now.
Yeah, getting back to what you were saying, I mean, look, the media doesn't report on the fact that President Trump, or just businessman Trump at the time, threw him out of Mar-a-Lago for inappropriate behavior with some of the women there. He's distanced himself completely from it. And not only that, he answered questions from a couple of news reporters that helped bring on this new investigation. And you are correct. He sat down at CPAC in 2015 with Sean Hannity, and they asked him about it. And he said he's got a lot of problems. He's got a lot of problems with the island and everything else. So Trump's been pretty well connected to what's going on in Washington and in the swamp. And then the other question that you had, what was it again?
The elites out there are very nervous.
Yeah, no question. You could have people in Hollywood wrapped up in this, the Weinstein crowd, the Kevin Spaceys, the directors, the many of the other people in the Me Too movement that have gotten swept up. Prince Andrew, we're hearing information coming out that he could be involved with this. Many other world leaders, of course, Bill Clinton, many other people in politics. I mean, this guy was pretty well connected with both parties. So, again, you have to ask yourself this question. Are they going to do an investigation in which they're going to go after the truth and be independent and impartial, or are they just going to use Jeffrey Epstein as a scapegoat? He's the only one that goes to jail for 35, 40 years, and nobody else gets punished. What I would like to see happen is I don't want to see Jeffrey Epstein in jail for life in prison. I want to see a plea bargain deal where they give him less time, maybe 7 to 10 years, and he takes down 15 to 20 of these deep state operatives and pedophiles with him.
I think you're right. And, I would agree with you. And I think there's a lot of people that are at least now considering the possibility that what some have been saying for a while about a global sex trafficking ring, may in fact be true. I mean, it kind of lurched its way into the media narrative barely when it comes to the southern border and the sex trafficking that goes on the border, the incentives that people have to leave the border open, and now we're getting to this Epstein thing, which is a powder keg, and it has potentially far-reaching ramifications, and hopefully justice will be done. I mean, we're talking about some of the sickest people that you can imagine. I mean, to do this to young girls and everything else, and so I certainly hope justice is done. And Josh, I really appreciate you coming on the program with us this morning and giving us your opinion on all this.
Sure, no problem. And folks, if you would like, you can go to patreon.com/Josh Bernstein, patreon.com/Josh Bernstein, JoshBernstein, and that's where you'll find all my videos. Also, I'm on Amazon, Roku TV, Fire Stick Television, YouTube, pretty much everywhere. But most of my videos are right there. I'm shadow banned on Twitter. I'm in Facebook jail. I'm demonetized on YouTube because I'm a truth seeker and a truth teller. So go to patreon.com/Josh Bernstein, where you'll get the truth, and you'll also be helping me defeat censorship.
Josh Bernstein, I appreciate it, sir. Thank you so much for
Thank you.
being with us.
Anytime.
All right. Be safe. Bye.
It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Hi, folks. Paul Harrell here. For those that can't catch Conduit News Radio with me on the radio every morning from 6 a.m. to 8, don't panic. You can always listen anytime on our digital platforms using your smartphone or computer. In this video, I'm here to help you navigate to the many options you have to watch or listen to the show across our digital platforms.
First, you can catch the show on Facebook. Just use your internet browser and type in facebook.com/Conduit News. From there, select Videos on the left side of your screen. From there, you can watch the full 2-hour show each day or select specific interviews you want to watch. Another place you can watch the show is on YouTube. Just use your internet browser and type in youtube.com. Then, in the search bar, search for Conduit News. Select the Conduit News page as it appears. While here, be sure to hit the subscribe button and hit the little bell to receive notifications when new videos are ready. From YouTube, you can also watch every live show daily and all the interviews I have with guests. More options are available at our website, conduitnews.com. Select the Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell tab. Here, you can watch each day's show live or watch old episodes and interviews. You can also catch audio-only versions of the show right here on this page of the website. For audio-only versions of the show, you have some options. For Apple iPhone users, simply use the podcast app and search Conduit News. Subscribe to the podcast and get each hour of the show automatically in your app daily. You can also download the SoundCloud app from your app store and search Conduit News to find your station. And that goes for Android users as well.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We want to make sure you get the latest on Arkansas news and politics. You have many options to know what government is doing in your name and with your tax dollars. Learn more at conduitnews.com.
Somebody was telling me, or I was reading a Facebook post about Ross Perot. He passed away. And somebody said, I voted for Ross Perot because he was talking about the national debt, and he was letting everybody know. And he said back then it was $4 trillion, now it's $22 trillion. And so, nothing bad has happened really since, we have this massive national debt, but there's nothing bad that's really happened to us yet.
Yeah, so those who would go along with that argument would say, well, look, the public debt has gone up 5 times since Ross Perot. It's 5 times larger, more than 5 times larger. And look, interest rates are low. We don't seem to be having any problems. So what's the big deal? Just keep letting the debt go up. Here's the big deal. You measure debt relative to how much income you have. And we do that for individuals, too. You have a certain level of income, you can take out a certain level of mortgage. You want debt that's proportionate to your income. Well, right now, back in when Ross Perot said that, the public debt was only about 50% of annual income. The public debt now is over 100% of annual income. So now the debt is getting to be large. The interest expense alone is eating up 8, 9, almost 10% of our annual spending. And interest rates are very low. Eventually, interest rates are going to go up. They have gone up somewhat. They're probably going to stabilize, maybe drop a little bit this year. But eventually, they're going to go up, and that will mean the interest expense on that debt will be even higher. Once you get to be more than 100% of income, it starts to make people nervous because you can run into some difficulties in being able to sell bonds, difficulties in being able to keep interest rates low, and difficulties because you're having to spend so much of the budget to pay just for interest on the debt. So we're pretty much close to a breaking point. There's only one other time in history where the debt was more than 100% of annual income, and that was right after World War II. Now, after World War II, of course, government spending went way down. The war was over, and we were able to get the public debt to be a much smaller portion of annual income. But we're at a point now, we're pretty much at a tipping point. We can't let the debt get much higher, and we're looking at relatively large deficits, it looks like, well into the future. So we're going to have to deal with this soon.
We're talking with Dr. Michael Busler. It's always great to have him on the program. Let me ask you about the Fed and this pick. Trump has nominated Judy Shelton, and she supports going back to the gold standard. Now, I think she's obviously a minority when it comes to these, these governors on the Fed. But what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't think going back to the gold standard is a good idea. It will end up pegging exchange rates between countries, and that's going to end up, I think, causing more problems than it solves. We're better off letting the exchange rates float and stay off of the gold standard. Now, about the Federal Reserve, though, and I wrote about this last year, I think the Federal Reserve was way too aggressive in raising interest rates. Since President Trump was elected, they've raised interest rates 8 times. Now, granted, they were pretty close to zero, and they're still relatively low. They're only in the 2.5% range. We're looking at the federal funds rate as a gauge. So they're still relatively low, but it's gone up so fast that it's interest expense for businesses.
All right, folks, welcome back to the show.
It was last year. Well, that tends.
Coming back live here, Johnny Cash Friday. So check this out. We have, and I posted this on YouTube, okay, Facebook update. Our systems show we are broadcasting to Facebook, but the video is nowhere to be found. We actually broadcast to 2 Facebook locations to reach maximum the maximum amount of likes and followers that we have, okay? And those videos are gone, but we've looked at our systems. It says that we are currently broadcasting to Facebook. The video itself, though, is nowhere to be found. And so all I can tell you is I don't know what's going on. The social media summit was yesterday. I do know we did play a video for you guys yesterday of Jeffrey Epstein's island, a 2014 drone video that was taken. I don't know. The only reason I say that is because I had the thought that the type of information that is being disclosed now about the elite like Jeffrey Epstein and others, and with Google scrubbing photos of Bill Clinton and Epstein, according to reports, with Dinesh D'Souza's tweet essentially being reported via retweets, meaning it appears that Twitter takes sensitive tweets, and if you go and retweet, and Dinesh D'Souza had a photo of Bill Clinton with his daughter, Chelsea, walking him down the aisle, or walking her down the aisle, and Jeffrey Epstein, this is post-Epstein conviction, by the way, of being a pedo, Epstein's, I guess, bottom gal, if you will, the madam, was there on the front row of so anyway, that was being in some way shadow banned to where if you had this many retweets, it would actually report. So you'd go to retweet Dinesh D'Souza's video, and then it says you didn't retweet it, you reported it. Really weird stuff. Matter of fact, let's go to Donald Trump at the social media summit describing a similar phenomenon, but a little bit different. And I believe he's talking about retweets here. Here's Donald Trump at the social media summit talking about what he has witnessed with his Twitter account. Go.
Just okay. But I'll tell you, a lot of bad things are happening. I have people come up to me, sir, we want to follow you. They don't let us on. And it was so different than it was even 6-7 months ago. I was picking up unbelievable amounts of people. And I'm hotter now than I was then, okay? Because, you also cool off, right? But much hotter, especially with a nice new stock market like it is, right? But no, I'm hotter now, and I go to Dan, I say, hey, what's going on here? It used to take me a short number of days to pick up 100,000 people. I'm not complaining, we're like at 60 some odd million, but then we have 5 different sites. We have another site with 25 million, we have another site with 10 or 12, then we have Facebook, then we have Instagram. We have a lot. We have a lot of people.
Legitimate as opposed to Obama's fake.
Way over 100 million. But I used to pick them up, and when I say used to, I'm talking about a few months ago. I was picking them up 100,000 people every very short period of time. Now it's, I would say, 10 times as long. And I noticed things happening when I put out something, a good one, that people like, right? Good tweet. It goes up. It used to go up, it would say 7,000, 7,008, 7,017, 7,024, 7,032, 7,044, right? Now it goes 7,000, 7,008, 6,998. Then they go 7,009, 6,074. I said, what's going on? No, it never did that before. It goes up, and then they take it down, then it goes up. I'd never had that. Does anyone know what I'm talking about with this? I never had that before. I used to watch it. It'd be like a rocket ship when I put out a beauty. Like when I said, remember I said somebody was spying on me? That thing was like a rocket. I get a call 2 minutes later. Did you say that? I said, yeah, I said that. Well, it's exploding. It's exploding. I turned out to be right. We turn out to be right about a lot of things. But I never had it. I'm just saying from the standpoint of somebody that maybe has used social media better than anybody, Josh, because I became president. I'm sure I could have done it, as we said, I would have, there's no question I would have done it either way.
Stop.
I said to Mark Burnett the other day.
Check out the full speech for yourself. That's courtesy of Real Clear Politics. Now, what did he say there? He's talking about retweets. Says used to, you get retweets, 6,009, 7,000. It would just keep going up. Now the retweets go up, and then they go down. Now, how many people out there do you know that are going to retweet something and then go back and unretweet it? I was like, oh, I really like what the president had to say. Oh, you know what? I've changed my mind. I don't want to retweet that anymore. Give me a break. It's preposterous. They are doing their best to put their thumb, their entire, fist on the scale. And anyway, and so on that, right now, most of our Facebook audience, it seems, has navigated to our YouTube channel. Facebook seems to be more popular, but you can still comment and stuff on the YouTube. Just go to youtube.com, search for Conduit News, or in your phone app, open it up and go there. Now, over on the website, I see we have people listening and watching us on the website right now. But guys, I'm just telling you, if you want to join the community, you can come to YouTube and you can actually join the comments if you would like. But by all means, you can keep watching and listening at conduitnews.com, or you can come to the YouTube channel, Conduit News. Just search for Conduit News in your search bar on youtube.com. Back in a moment.
The The news and talk of Northeast Arkansas. This is News Talk 101.3 FM and 12:30 AM KBTM, Jonesboro, an EAB radio station.
It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Hi, folks. Paul Harrell here. For those that can't catch Conduit News Radio with me on the radio every morning from 6 a.m. to 8, don't panic. You can always listen anytime on our digital platforms using your smartphone or computer. In this video, I'm here to help you navigate to the many options you have to watch or listen to the show across our digital platforms.
First, you can catch the show on Facebook. Just use your internet browser and type in facebook.com/Conduit News. From there, select Videos on the left side of your screen. From there, you can watch the full 2-hour show each day or select specific interviews you want to watch. Another place you can watch the show is on YouTube. Just use your internet browser and type in youtube.com. Then, in the search bar, search for Conduit News. Select the Conduit News page as it appears. While here, be sure to hit the subscribe button and hit the little bell to receive notifications when new videos are ready. From YouTube, you can also watch every live show daily and all the interviews I have with guests. More options are available at our website, conduitnews.com. Select the Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell tab. Here, you can watch each day's show live or watch old episodes and interviews. You can also catch audio-only versions of the show right here on this page of the website. For audio-only versions of the show, you have some options. For Apple iPhone users, simply use the podcast app and search Conduit News. Subscribe to the podcast and get each hour of the show automatically in your app daily. You can also download the SoundCloud app from your app store and search Conduit News to find your station. And that goes for Android users as well.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We want to make sure you get the latest on Arkansas news and politics. You have many options to know what government is doing in your name and with your tax dollars. Learn more at conduitnews.com.
Slow economic growth. The other thing the Federal Reserve is doing to get out of the last recession, they went through what they call this quantitative easing, which means they vastly increased the money supply. They're now starting to reduce the money supply, and they're doing it relatively quickly. That, too, will tend to slow economic growth. So I think what Chairman Powell said just yesterday was, we're going to take it easy with this. We realize, I think we got very aggressive. We're not raising interest rates at all this year, and most likely will reduce interest rates probably when they meet at the end of the month. I expect about 0.25%, maybe even 0.5% drop in interest rates. That'll send the economy back on a growth path that we were on prior to the Federal Reserve taking all this aggressive action. Remember, prior to Trump getting into office, the economy was growing at only about a 2% rate or less. Since President Trump has been in office, the economy has been growing at a 3% rate. Had the Federal Reserve not been so aggressive last year, we might be growing at a 3.5% or 4% rate. So I think the Fed's going to finally ease up on some of their aggressive posture.
We certainly know Donald Trump's political opponents are hoping for an economic collapse so that they can blame it on him. We definitely know that. We're talking with Dr. Michael Bessler. I want to ask you again. So, ask you about the Fed, ask you about the gold standard. Last week, Trump talked about the U.S. dollar and maybe weakening the U.S. dollar. I've got a story from yesterday from CNBC. Trump has reportedly asked aides to find a way to weaken the U.S. dollar, basically play some of this currency manipulation game that other countries are doing. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, I will say this about Trump. He comes up with ideas that you don't even ever hear talked about. You know, at least he's thinking outside the box. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's exactly. You know, he's exactly right. He's not a politician. He's a business person, and business people look for solutions to problems and don't worry about things necessarily being politically correct or not, which is why Trump is looking at doing so many things. The way that exchange rates are supposed to work, you just let the market determine what exchange rates are, and they work out well.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
It's hour number 2. We have our meme of the day ready for you coming up about 7:50. It's a Scooby-Doo meme. Now, you're going to say, Paul, what in the world? What in the world would you be? I mean, how would that even be funny? It's funny. It's funny. We're also going to be talking with Congressman Rick Crawford coming up at 7:33. It's always great to talk to him. He wrote a fantastic op-ed we covered. It was over at Talk Business Politics. He wrote a fantastic op-ed on the dangers of China and trade policy. We'll talk to him about that, I'm sure, as well as a lot of other stuff. So, for those of you who don't know, you're listening on radio, this maybe doesn't apply to you. But it might if you listen to part of the show on radio and then get the rest of the show on Facebook. Facebook is censoring us in some way. I'm 90% sure. I've taken screenshots of our equipment. I've taken screenshots of our messaging that says that we are broadcasting to Facebook. There are no problems. The video is nowhere. No one got notifications. It's nowhere. There could be a lot of reasons for this. I have my suspicions as to what it is. I personally think it might have something to do with the fact that we showed a 2014 video of a drone flyover of Jeffrey Epstein's island. And I'm just saying, I think there's an effort to keep people from knowing the truth about a lot of stuff. You got reports of Google scrubbing images of Bill Clinton and Jeffrey Epstein, and there's some truth to that. I googled Jeffrey Epstein, Bill Clinton yesterday, and the first photo that comes up is a photo of Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein. I mean, come on. I don't know what's happening now with that, but it's just something to watch. So anyway, those of you, our YouTube is uninterrupted. So if you're one of these people that listens to part of the show on podcast or part of the show on radio, and then you want to catch the rest of it on Facebook, you're not going to be able to do that. You're going to have to go to the YouTube channel, and that's what I would recommend that you do, because it will be archived there, the full broadcast, just like it is on Facebook, but on YouTube. Simple, Conduit News, and subscribe. Click the little bell to receive notification. For those of you right now who were not able to get the Facebook video and intelligently went to conduitnews.com to watch, because you can watch there, because that's a live stream video. That's not a Facebook or anything. Thank you for navigating over there. I can see you listening right now. But if you want to comment and you want to join the community that's commenting on the show, go to the YouTube channel, because that's where people are commenting. Yeah. We cannot see you. No. Joe's over there like, we see you. No. We are broadcasting, I'm sure, to an NSA server near you. I mean, all right, so the phone number, 870-275-9799. That's 870-275-9799. Here we go. let's go to Conduit News. Check this out. I just want you to see the front page of Conduit News so far. This is kind of a week of stories, kind of a week in review. This first story you see here, propaganda on guns from Arkansas State Police, ? Check that story out. It's really just an interview with Dan Borm of Patriots Vec 746. But I did highlight this quote from Dan Borm's interview. He said, quote, "When it comes to law enforcement, you would think that the top director in the state concerning law enforcement would be the one to set the precedent of obeying the law and following the law, but yet we still have this problem of doing this waltz or this Texas two-step in the state of Arkansas, and frankly, we're getting our bellies full of it. We're tired of it." Again, that's Dan Borm. You want to check that video out. It is doing quite well. A lot of people are frustrated. And you know what? From what I can tell, we're the only news outlet in the state that's actually covering the manufactured confusion being put out by our own government. As I said in the interview, it is amazing that the Arkansas State Police refused to acknowledge constitutional carry, permitless carry, when the legislative branch clarified it with resolutions, when the judicial branch in dicta put it in a court opinion in Taft versus Arkansas, and when the Attorney General's own opinion in the first paragraph states that there is no penalty for carrying a weapon concealed without a permit, meaning it doesn't exist in the code. And then you start to realize that we have been psychologically conditioned since the 90s. Also, one of my favorite lines in that interview is, the 90s called, they want their gun control policies back because the state police is acting like 2013 never happened, and they're stuck in 95. Anyway, so there's that. Then we have go back to the front page here. So then we have this. We're going to get to this here in a minute. Making History Act 879 and Greed. This has to do with Senator Will Bond. We'll tell you about that. We also threw up there on the front page former Senator Brian King on Jeremy Hutchinson. Quote, "Jeremy is a criminal." It's always great to listen to Brian, so you can get caught up on that. Also, a fantastic article courtesy of Conduit for Action. Does it control spending? About the budget. You need to listen to that. And then from last week, lawmakers say state police opinion on guns conflicts with the law. Those two interviews are actually very complementary to each other. The one on the front page and the one featured and the other one on the front page. The follow-up one really talks about their argument, their hiding, their misinterpretation of the court case. Anyway, you need to check all of that out. Let's go with Will Bond here. So Will Bond is a Democrat, okay, and he conducts himself. I watched Will Bond as a Democrat conduct himself with a lot of, I would say, just a lot of friendliness. Now, a lot of frustration, but Will Bond was never a guy to get mad. But you could tell he would get frustrated because he's a Democrat and he wants big government, and and he would try to object to things, and people just like, okay, we got to listen to Will Bond, and they were like, okay, time's up. Now let's go ahead and vote and pass this thing. That's essentially who Will Bond is. Okay, he's an attorney. He's from Central Arkansas. And he's now decided he's not going to run for re-election. So instead, former State Representative Clark Tucker, who, if you go read old news reports, Clark Tucker, in his failed bid for Congress, he tried to unseat French Hill, failed miserably. Clark Tucker now wants to take Will Bond's spot. But if you go back and you research things, Asa Hutchinson gave Democrat Clark Tucker credit for coming up with the line item veto to get around the funding mechanism, the constitutional requirement to fund bills 3/4. Apparently, that was Clark Tucker's idea. Many people think that line item veto was unconstitutional, where you say, okay, you can vote to vote on something without it had to do with Medicaid expansion and Obamacare. It's all very complicated. I'm not going to get back into it, but I'm just saying Clark Tucker is a guy, in my opinion, known as a Democrat that gives Republicans terrible ideas. Anyway, This is a quote here. I frequently ask people, what history will we write together? I've heard Senator Wilbon say this many times. He said this a few times, from the floor of the Senate. This courtesy of CFA. Senator Will Bond, Democrat Jacksonville, announced that he will not run for re-election in 2020. His announcement on Facebook includes a statement that should serve as a good guide for any public servant. I frequently ask people, what history will we write together? Bond and the other members of the Arkansas Senate make history as they write laws that could stay on the books for decades or perhaps centuries. Senator Bond forgot all about history and his legacy when he sponsored Act 879 of 2019. Senator, is this the law, the history that you want to be remembered for? The legislation qualifies for the Hall of Fame of deception and greed. I'm going to have to take a sip of coffee. Deceptive? If you only read the title of the bill, it appears to be good. An act to increase the penalty for taking campaign funds as personal income. Ooh, that sounds really good. But that part is insignificant compared to the remainder of the bill. Greedy? Instead of the legislation being about clamping down on candidates who use campaign funds for personal income, the bill, would you believe it or not, does the opposite. It authorizes office holders to take as much of the campaign funds as they want, as long as they can categorize it as expense for office holder activities. So want to supplement your nice apartment near the Capitol in Little Rock? Just declare it to be a home office and use campaign funds to pay rent, utilities, etc. They couldn't do this before this bill. Want to take a really nice trip to do some fine dining? Just categorize it as something an office holder might do and spend campaign funds on it. The legislation cannot be seen as anything other than a direct response to Senator Jeremy Hutchinson being indicted for a felony stemming from converting campaign funds to his personal use. Hutchinson recently pled guilty to that felony and to other felonies. If Bond's law had been in effect when Senator Hutchinson was taking campaign funds and using it on his girlfriend, or maybe paying for that abortion, Hutchinson could have avoided his legal problems on this conduct by funneling the same amount of money. I added the abortion part, by the way. Funneling the same amount of money into his bank account to defray expenses for office holder activities and then claiming it as a business expense. Bond wasn't able to save the money-grubbing Senator Hutchinson, but Bond's law will save greedy colleagues from the same fate. And where will the surplus campaign money come from? Expect to see lobbyists host more fundraisers for incumbents to help them live high on the hog. What history will we write together? Senator Will Bond did not pass this. Okay, so let me be clear here, because I just insinuated that this was law. This, well, actually, hang on. No, I'm sorry. Did not pass this atrocious legislation all by himself. Was it even his idea, or was he just the front guy? One of the co-sponsors of this appalling legislation is Jeremy Hutchinson's cousin, Senator Jim Hendren. And you can't ignore the fact that the legislation was signed into law by Jeremy Hutchinson's uncle, Governor Ace Hutchinson. Okay, so, sorry. I thought it was law, and I'm second-guessing myself. So this became law, okay? This actually happened, where they can now take campaign funds and spend it on themselves as long as it's part of being a politician, living that lifestyle, that tough lifestyle they live. The co-sponsors, Senator Keith Ingram, Democrat, Bart Hester, Republican, Jim Hendren, Republican, Representatives John Maddox, Republican, Matthew Shepard, Speaker of the House, Republican. The bill was passed by 33 of 35 senators and 88 of the 100 representatives. They and the governor are all to blame for this. This might be the worst thing that happened in light of all of the corruption that was going on down there. Goes on, if you tell your senator and representatives you are ashamed of them for supporting this grab fest, here's what they will likely tell you. I didn't know what was in the bill. And that's, you know what? That's probably true, because the bill had a great title. We need to look at fixing it, but we can't do anything about it until 2021. Don't accept "I didn't know what was in the bill" as an answer. The Arkansas Constitution purposely allows them to file such a bill in the 2020 fiscal session, non-appropriation bills. It only takes 2/3 resolution of each house to allow the bill to be introduced. You need to know where your legislator stands for greed or for the people. And this last part. Because the 2020 fiscal session will occur after the next primary election, you need to demand that your legislators support the legislation by being a sponsor or co-sponsor of a bill to repeal the use of campaign funds for office holder expenses and to make the bill public before the beginning of the filing period for filing as a candidate. Now this is insane. I mean, if you really think about this, how did this even happen, by the way? I mean, I would ask the question, in a Republican supermajority legislator, how does Democrat Will Bond even get an audience? Like, how does he even get this thing through? But this passed. They want, and honestly, the statewide media should be all over this. In light of the corruption, the fact that they went further with it, the fact that Jeremy Hutchinson did what he did, and this bill would essentially have given him a get-out-of-jail-free card. I mean, does that upset anybody out there? We can do better than this. And again, the title of the bill, I mean, it's Act 879 of 2019, so it is law. The title of the bill sounds great. An act to increase the penalty for taking campaign funds as personal income, which they did do. It increased the penalty, but then broadened what you can legally do with your campaign funds. Now, what a deceptive, garbage piece of legislation. And you wonder why people make general statements that disparage everybody down there. And you have the gall to criticize, though. People down there you got the gall to criticize those of us who are telling people what's actually going on. 870-275-9799. Call or text. We're broadcasting right now. YouTube.com. Because Facebook apparently is shadow banning us, I guess. I don't know. Or outright banning us. We'll see what happens.
It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Hi, folks. Paul Harrell here. For those that can't catch Conduit News Radio with me on the radio every morning from 6 a.m. to 8, don't panic. You can always listen anytime on our digital platforms using your smartphone or computer. In this video, I'm here to help you navigate to the many options you have to watch or listen to the show across our digital platforms.
First, you can catch the show on Facebook. Just use your internet browser and type in facebook.com/Conduit News. From there, select Videos on the left side of your screen. From there, you can watch the full 2-hour show each day or select specific interviews you want to watch. Another place you can watch the show is on YouTube. Just use your internet browser and type in youtube.com. Then, in the search bar, search for Conduit News. Select the Conduit News page as it appears. While here, be sure to hit the subscribe button and hit the little bell to receive notifications when new videos are ready. From YouTube, you can also watch every live show daily and all the interviews I have with guests. More options are available at our website, conduitnews.com. Select the Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell tab. Here, you can watch each day's show live or watch old episodes and interviews. You can also catch audio-only versions of the show right here on this page of the website. For audio-only versions of the show, you have some options. For Apple iPhone users, simply use the podcast app and search Conduit News. Subscribe to the podcast and get each hour of the show automatically in your app daily. You can also download the SoundCloud app from your app store and search Conduit News to find your station. And that goes for Android users as well.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We want to make sure you get the latest on Arkansas news and politics. You have many options to know what government is doing in your name and with your tax dollars. Learn more at conduitnews.com.
China purposely keeps the value of their currency low, and they can manipulate in certain ways to be able to do that. That makes their goods much cheaper for everybody else to buy, and our goods more expensive for them to buy, which is part of the reason why we have such a large negative balance of trade with them. Had China not done that, the exchange rates would have worked themselves out, and the trade deficit we have with China would not be as great. So Trump's saying, well, if they do it, maybe we should do it too. There are not really too many ways we can do that that will give us a lot of benefit. So I don't think this will go anywhere, but you're right in that Trump is bringing up different ideas and different ways to do things, saying, look, we've got to combat some of these things, and we have to combat them any way that we can.
Last question on the bond issue. I did read this headline here, Wall Street Journal. Government bond market measure says recession risk growing. That's by Daniel Kruger. What are your thoughts on that?
So normally, long-term interest rates are higher than short-term interest rates. In other words, if you buy a 10-year bond, you should get a higher interest rate than if you buy a one-year bond. And the reason is simple. The longer you have the money tied up, the more risk you're taking. And the more risk you're taking, you should get a greater return, so higher interest rates. So long-term rates should be higher than short-term rates. And that's called looking at what they call the yield curve. Now we have an inverted yield curve, which means the short-term rates are actually higher than the long-term rates. About two-thirds of the time that has happened in the past, a recession follows. Now, not always, but about two-thirds of the time. So many of these economists and financial people are saying, well, look, the bond market's telling us a recession could be coming, and that's where they're reaching those conclusions. I don't see a recession coming. If short-term rates are higher than long-term rates, the simple solution is for the Federal Reserve to cut interest rates so short-term rates will go down, and then we'll have a normal yield curve. Wow. And I think that's
all right. We're going to bring this back now. We're going to bring it back in. People are outraged. People are absolutely outraged on social media right now that the state of Arkansas would have passed a piece of legislation like this. And they should be. For those of you just joining us, it's up right now at conduitnews.com. Headline is Making History, Act 879 and Greed. You got to read about it. Because, see, if it's an office holder expense, you can now use campaign funds for office holder expenses, which means it could mean literally anything. Not just political activity, but office holder expense. So your apartment, your utility bills. Imagine a little money for your mistress. I mean, it's an office holder expense. I'm away from home. I'm away from my family. I mean, the guy's got needs. Telephone number 870-275-9799. We're going to be back here in just a moment with Congressman Rick Crawford. I want to ask him why did he feel the need to write this op-ed over at Talk Business and Politics? It came out last weekend, or about a week ago, talking about the dangers of China and how they're stealing things from us, and the good things that the trade policy that Donald Trump has with China and what that's doing in an attempt to reclaim American sovereignty. We'll be back here in just a moment. Congressman Rick Crawford, don't go anywhere. Back in a moment.
It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Hi, folks. Paul Harrell here. For those that can't catch Conduit News Radio with me on the radio every morning from 6 a.m. to 8, don't panic. You can always listen anytime on our digital platforms using your smartphone or computer. In this video, I'm here to help you navigate to the many options you have to watch or listen to the show across our digital platforms.
First, you can catch the show on Facebook. Just use your internet browser and type in facebook.com/Conduit News. From there, select Videos on the left side of your screen. From there, you can watch the full 2-hour show each day or select specific interviews you want to watch. Another place you can watch the show is on YouTube. Just use your internet browser and type in youtube.com. Then, in the search bar, search for Conduit News. Select the Conduit News page as it appears. While here, be sure to hit the subscribe button and hit the little bell to receive notifications when new videos are ready. From YouTube, you can also watch every live show daily and all the interviews I have with guests. More options are available at our website, conduitnews.com. Select the Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell tab. Here, you can watch each day's show live or watch old episodes and interviews. You can also catch audio-only versions of the show right here on this page of the website. For audio-only versions of the show, you have some options. For Apple iPhone users, simply use the podcast app and search Conduit News. Subscribe to the podcast and get each hour of the show automatically in your app daily. You can also download the SoundCloud app from your app store and search Conduit News to find your station. And that goes for Android users as well.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We want to make sure you get the latest on Arkansas news and politics. You have many options to know what government is doing in your name and with your tax dollars. Learn more at conduitnews.com.
Here we go. Hey, welcome back. Thanks for starting the beginning of your day with us here, the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. I got these stories here that are quite fascinating to me. Nobody talks about the national debt anymore or the deficit. Here's the Wall Street Journal headline. Government bond market measure says recession risk growing. Yield on short-term treasuries has been higher than on long-term notes for more than 30 consecutive trading sessions. Also from thehill.com. Make America's deficits great again is the headline there. So there's some media attention being paid to the first term of President Trump and spending the debt, that sort of thing. Also, we have from rollcall.com headline, Pelosi debt limit vote possible before August recess, kind of raising the debt limit again. So nobody really talks about these issues anymore. I'd like to bring in an expert. You've heard him before. It's always great to talk to him. His name is Dr. Michael Busler. He's a professor of finance at Stockton University in New Jersey, a public policy analyst, economics expert. You've seen his column featured at Newsmax, LifeZed, and townhall.com. Dr. Busler, welcome back, sir.
Good morning, Paul. How are you? It's always my pleasure to be here.
I appreciate that. It's likewise. So what do you make of these headlines?
Well, so here's the situation, and it's going to come to a head, I have a feeling, in September. So the federal government every year spends more money than they take in revenue. And they've done that in, I think, 56 of the last 60 years. So when that occurs, they have to sell bonds to finance the deficit, what they're short. There's no mechanism to ever pay back.
All right, folks, welcome back. We got a special treat for you. We got Congressman Rick Crawford on the line. Rick, how are you this morning?
I am good. I never thought of myself as a special treat, but that's nice.
Well, I mean, words. We say words here. So Rick, I really appreciate you coming on. It's always great to have you. Now, this piece Do we want China to slow down or stop? Talk Business and Politics. It was out last weekend. What can you tell us about it? What was your motivation for writing this?
Well, there's so much talk about China, and we've heard them talk about we want to make investments in this country and that country. We see that they, their goals with things like their Huawei 5G. We don't get the full picture of what China's ambitions are. And so I think people need to be aware of this whole Belt and Road Initiative, which is basically reconstituting the Silk Road. If you think about the historic context of the Silk Road and the trade routes that found their way to China, and China was a significant trade destination going back hundreds of years. Well, they want to reconstitute that Silk Road with the Belt and Road Initiative, and how they do that is they try to make us believe that they're a capitalist economy. They're absolutely not. They are state-owned entities. They're socialists. They're communists. And what they do is they invest in their businesses. They subsidize their businesses, not with a profit motive, but a sustainability motive. That is to say, we want to still be in business when all these other businesses have failed, so they don't have any other options but to do business with us. So that's why they engage in such aggressive intellectual property theft and forced technology transfers as a condition of doing business in China. So we've had American businesses that go over, make the investment in factories and so on to make, we'll say, a widget. Okay, so they've got all the proprietary information at their disposal as a condition of doing business there. Yes, you can come in here, you can avail yourself of our labor market, but we're going to require that you give us your injection molds or whatever proprietary devices or technology you have, and then not for too long, they'll go down the street, open up a factory of their own, and produce exactly the same thing, essentially a counterfeit product, and put that on the market. That's just one example of the kind of aggressive economic behavior they engage in, to say nothing of the fact that as under WTO rules, they're still being considered, given the consideration as a developing economy. When you can spend the billions of dollars that they spend outside of their own economy, for example, funding a military base, a port in Djibouti, Africa, when you can do that, when you can go to other countries and promise them 5G service, and in exchange what you're doing is trying to access the rare earth minerals to help pursue your economic goals, you're not a developing economy. You have arrived. So you need to drop this sham of being a developing economy and start to play in the real world, which means that you have a different set of rules because, developed economies like the United States and Europe and others, they don't get that same consideration. I mean, that's just one thing, but then all tied up in this is their march toward military supremacy. What they want to be is not only the supreme economy in the world, but also the supreme military. They are poised to deploy 2 carrier groups by, I believe, 2025. That's never happened before. It's not in their wheelhouse to be an expeditionary force, and certainly not to be able to deploy global capacity, global range carrier groups. But they're on course to do that, and how they're doing that is by exploiting the economy globally. And I'm seeing some good signs around the world in countries that are waking up to this, saying, you know what, this sounds good, but we're just going to pass on this. We think long term maybe we need to align with the United States or other nations that are not trying to take advantage of us. I'll give you an example of one nation that was grossly taken advantage of. They went to Costa Rica. The Chinese went to Costa Rica, and they pressured them to expel their Taiwanese diplomats. And Costa Ricans were like, well, we don't necessarily need to expel the Taiwanese diplomatic corps. They said, well, if you do, we'll build a soccer stadium for you. Well, I guess Costa Rica needed a soccer stadium more than they needed any kind of Taiwanese relationship, and they expelled them. As a result, they got a soccer stadium. It's that kind of belligerent deal-making that is a problem around the world. It's not as though I don't like Chinese people. That's not it at all. I'm not against Chinese people. I'm against the Chinese government and the belligerent stance that they're taking economically and militarily.
Yeah. And I think, and I want to thank you for, first of all, using your official, position, or using the. I mean, the fact is, when a U.S. congressman, speaks, people listen, and this is a big issue. And I'm really glad that you're speaking out against, like you said, the Chinese government, and calling these companies, in some cases, they're Chinese entities, and this idea is that they are communists. We forget that, and there does seem to be. For example, I read Peter Schweitzer's book, and that book talks about how the Chinese can actually get around campaign finance laws or I would even say bribery laws by employing the children of powerful politicians, and that's incredible to me.
Well, here's an example. There's a couple of things that they can do legally. Another thing I need to point out is I've been briefed on this by the Office of the Director of National Intelligence about what they're now seeing a need to reach out into communities and make them aware of essentially a business intelligence and supply chain integrity model. And this is all based on two things. One of them is the Confucius Institute, which places Chinese students in academic institutions across the country. The other is just the out-and-out theft. I mean, I've been told about people stealing soybeans, for example, out of a grain bin, just taking samples, walking up, taking samples out of stored soybeans, and now what do you think that's about? We had in 2017 we had five Chinese nationals in the state of Arkansas doing research with University of Arkansas Extension Service that were indicted on federal charges. So this is not just something that happens, in the national security space, so to speak. This is happening at home in our backyard, where Chinese people, or Chinese government rather, are seeking to place people in positions to exploit, steal, whatever it takes to give them a competitive advantage. This is happening. It's happened at MD Anderson, where they're stealing research taking place down there. It's all of our academic institutions are targets. Not to mention any kind of tech development. You think about the high-tech corridor in the Silicon Valley, for example, vulnerable to exploitation by Chinese nationals that are placed there by the government. This is happening every single day, and they'll promise you the moon. They'll say we're going to make these investments. Let me give you the kind of example of kind of investment that they promise in places like nations in Western Africa, as an example. We'll come in here and we'll make infrastructure improvements. We'll give you a 5G, and you guys will be on the road to economic prosperity. And we're going to give you all kinds of. We're going to create all kinds of jobs. Okay, so what they do is they'll come in and the payoff is they get access to those rare earth minerals that you see countries in Africa have abundance of. And guess who gets rich? Probably that corrupt leader of the nation in question. Then the Chinese come in and they'll feign some sort of a project, but look, they're not creating jobs. They're bringing Chinese people in to fill those jobs. It essentially is a closed loop. So they bring in all the resources necessary. The Chinese people aren't out on the economy making an investment in the Chinese economy or impacting the Chinese economy, the local economy in any measurable way. And so all this is just a sham. What they want is the rare earth minerals, and they make them a deal, and then it turns out to not be such a good deal after all. And so there are nations in South America, for example, that are having this presented. That's our backyard. Central America, we know the Chinese are aggressively engaged in Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador. It doesn't surprise you that they're involved in Nicaragua, but I told you about Costa Rica. These are our neighbors, for crying out loud. They're very aggressive in Cuba right now, to say nothing of what they do here in the United States. And then their ability to influence through their soft media push, for example. They go to the ag media, of all things, and they place op-eds, and they put stories in publications that talk about how, Trump is failing the American farmer, and these soybean tariffs are punitive, and he doesn't care about farmers and all this other kind of stuff. And that is that's their media influence campaign that they're engaged in. These are not people who are interested in any kind of beneficial relationship, mutually beneficial relationship between us and them. They are all about China and advancing their own economic and military agenda.
Would there be any way? I mean, I know if you're accepting ad dollars, people are going to want to take the ad dollars. But you would think, I mean, if you're participating in a foreign government's ad campaign, I don't know if I'd want any part of that if I was a publisher.
Well, I tell you, I think we're going to have to reevaluate what it means here to be an American. So whether you like Donald Trump or not, I think you have to recognize that what he has done is to sort of start this conversation about, is it okay for us to put America first? And maybe you don't like that idea of us from a global perspective to put America first. But at the very least, we need to put America first here in America. Doesn't that make sense? So to your point, do we really want to take advertising dollars from a country that is seeking to undermine our economy, which ultimately tees up their ability to threaten us militarily? So that's not just around the globe. That's at home. They're doing that here in our home. And we can't turn a blind eye to that. And so when we have all these Chinese companies, or the Chinese government, because there are no Chinese companies, they are state-owned enterprises. They are agents of the Chinese government, for lack of a better term. They come in and they promise economic development. That sounds good, and it particularly sounds good to a region or a district like mine, the Delta region, that really needs a shot in the arm with regard to economic development. So people get all charged up about the idea that, oh, awesome, we're going to have a factory or a plant in a place that really needs an infusion of jobs and economic advancement. And that sounds really good, but I'm going to tell you it's a Trojan horse is what it is. And we need to be very, very careful about welcoming these people, this Chinese government plan to threaten the U.S. economy, not only globally and try to diminish us in the global community, but to come in and actively engage here in our own country in a way that we're kind of victimized to some degree. I don't like playing the victim, and I'm not going to. I know what we need to do here, and we need to just sort of, cowboy up on this thing and say, hey, we're not going to have it. If you don't like the way we do business in the global community, that's one thing. But you're not coming into our house and dictate the terms here.
Mm-hmm. We're talking with Congressman Rick Crawford. He wrote this great op-ed over at Talk Business and Politics last week, and you guys should check it out. Do we want China to slow down or stop? Obviously, we want them to stop. There does seem to be some other developments on this trade war with China. Particularly, I've read several articles, Congressman, that have to do with Donald Trump being open to the idea of wanting the value of the dollar to decrease because of some of the currency manipulating activities that China is engaged in. Do you know anything about this, and how far do you think that would actually go, that idea?
Well, I think in general, you don't want a weak dollar, but you don't want an overly valued dollar. What you I think you should strive for is equilibrium in the global market that gives you buying power, gives the United States consumer buying power, some level of equilibrium. At the same time, make our products more attractive because they're not overly expensive. And so things being pegged to the dollar, the dollar is the reserve world currency. That's important. And so this is why we have to make sure that our economy, this is what makes the difference between our economy, a market-based economy, and a non-market economy like China, in that ours is undergirded fundamentally, and we don't want to mess that up, like with this notion of quantitative easing, where what that means is we're basically printing more money. That sort of cheapens our currency, and we don't want to do that. On the other hand, we don't want to have our dollar so highly valued that we're not an attractive marketplace. And so we want to make sure that there is an equilibrium there and trying to achieve that. And I think that's essentially what the president is advocating for, is not that we have a cheap dollar per se, but that we maintain a good fundamental undergirding of our currency, but that it's also attractive to foreign consumers because they know that they can they can get a value here from the U.S. economy.
Congressman Rick Crawford, it is always great to have you on. I appreciate your honesty. And I think that's what the special treat is, sir, to bring this full circle, is you're very honest and transparent. We appreciate your opinions.
You bet. Good to be with you,
Okay.
Paul.
Have a great weekend. Rick Crawford, everybody, we're going to take this video. We're going to put it in a YouTube video. We're going to throw it on our channel. Also going to put it on the front page of Conduit News. You guys really need to check it out. Share this with your friends. Really, really good stuff. Congressman Crawford is on top of it in terms of the dangers of China, what it poses to our other countries as well as right here in the United States. Very refreshing interview from him. A lot of truth. We're going to take a break. We're going to be back with your meme of the day. And do you remember the story on Monday or Tuesday about Little Rock considering an urban deer hunt? Somebody called and told me a story about a very hilarious story about an urban deer hunt in Hot Springs Village. I'll give you that story next.
It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Hi, folks. Paul Harrell here. For those that can't catch Conduit News Radio with me on the radio every morning from 6 a.m. to 8, don't panic. You can always listen anytime on our digital platforms using your smartphone or computer. In this video, I'm here to help you navigate to the many options you have to watch or listen to the show across our digital platforms.
First, you can catch the show on Facebook. Just use your internet browser and type in facebook.com/Conduit News. From there, select Videos on the left side of your screen. From there, you can watch the full 2-hour show each day or select specific interviews you want to watch. Another place you can watch the show is on YouTube. Just use your internet browser and type in youtube.com. Then, in the search bar, search for Conduit News. Select the Conduit News page as it appears. While here, be sure to hit the subscribe button and hit the little bell to receive notifications when new videos are ready. From YouTube, you can also watch every live show daily and all the interviews I have with guests. More options are available at our website, conduitnews.com. Select the Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell tab. Here, you can watch each day's show live or watch old episodes and interviews. You can also catch audio-only versions of the show right here on this page of the website. For audio-only versions of the show, you have some options. For Apple iPhone users, simply use the podcast app and search Conduit News. Subscribe to the podcast and get each hour of the show automatically in your app daily. You can also download the SoundCloud app from your app store and search Conduit News to find your station. And that goes for Android users as well.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We want to make sure you get the latest on Arkansas news and politics. You have many options to know what government is doing in your name and with your tax dollars. Learn more at conduitnews.com.
In other words, we pay interest only on them. When they come due in 20 years, we don't have the money to pay them back, so we simply sell new bonds to pay back the old bonds. So it's called rolling over the public debt. So as a result, the public debt keeps growing. Congress has to set a limit to how much the federal government can borrow. The limit is roughly in the $22 trillion range, but we've because of the continuing deficits we've had and we're having right now, we're up to the maximum. So Congress has to approve an increase in the debt ceiling. Now, in order to do that, conservatives are going to say, look, we'll go along with you, but you've got to put a plan in place to get these deficits down and at least come closer to balancing the budget. Well, there's going to be arguments with that too. Reducing government spending is very difficult. Why? About 70% of the government budget, or roughly a little over 60% rather, of the government budget, 2.7 trillion of the 4.4 trillion, a little over 60%, goes to things, entitlement programs, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. politically, we're going to have a difficult time trying to reduce any spending there. So that's pretty much locked in. Another 8% or so, 9% goes to cover interest on the public debt, which we obviously have to pay that also. So that's 70% of the budget that we can't touch. That leaves 30% left. Now, of that 30%, roughly, half of it is for defense spending and half of it is for domestic programs. The Republicans want to reduce the spending on domestic programs and increase defense spending because our military has been essentially decimated prior to President Trump. The Democrats, on the other hand, say we spend too much money on the military. They want to increase spending on social programs. And some of the Democrats want to vastly increase spending on social programs when they talk about things like Medicare for all, free college tuition, and that sort of thing. So here we're going to have a big problem, I think, in September. We have to raise the debt ceiling, and we have to come up with a deal to do that both the Democrats and Republicans can live with, and it's going to be a very difficult thing to do.
Absolutely it is. And I guess I'm just wondering, what is your view on the national debt, the deficit, in terms of, I mean, how long can we do this? Somebody was telling me, or I was reading a Facebook post about Ross Perot. You know, he passed away. And somebody said, I voted for Ross Perot because he was talking about the national debt, and he was letting everybody know. And he said back then it was $4 trillion, now it's $22 trillion. And so, you know, nothing bad has happened really since, you know, I mean, we have this massive national debt, but there's nothing bad that's really happened to us yet.
Yeah, so those who would go along with that argument would say, well, look, the public debt has gone up 5 times since Ross Perot. It's 5 times larger, more than 5 times larger. And look, interest rates are low. We don't seem to be having any problems. So what's the big deal? Just keep letting the debt go up. Here's the big deal. You measure debt relative to how much income you have. And we do that for individuals, too. You know, you have a certain level of income, you can take out a certain level of mortgage. You want debt that's proportionate to your income. Well, right now, back in when Ross Perot said that, the public debt was only about
all right, real quick.
Of
we're going to get to your meme of the day. Little Rock's considering an urban deer hunt. Somebody called when we covered that story, and they said, oh, by the way, funny story about a Hot Springs Village deer hunt. They had a urban deer hunt there, so I was told that a man got up into a tree, got his bow ready, and the deer started creeping out of the woods, and he shot. He shot straight. He shot true. He made a good shot. And, of course, like all deer do in archery season, when you shoot a deer, most of the time, the deer will run. And so the deer takes off running up a hill, through the bushes, through the woods, and all of a sudden the man hears a blood-curdling scream. Ah! Judy! You shot Judy! No! Judy! And there was an elderly woman on her front porch. And the hunter was like, oh, crap. And so the hunter's like, what do I do? I've got to go get my deer. Well, the deer's dead at this point. Bled out right in front of Judy's mom, Judy's human mom. And anyway, she starts screaming, someone call 911. Someone call the sheriff. And anyway, she goes in, and while he goes in, the man gets in his truck, hightails it up there, grabs the deer, and speeds off. So these urban deer hunts, they might affect people's wild pets, if you will. Here is your meme of the day, Joe. Scooby-Doo. Here we go. It's, again, courtesy of epic conservative memes. Scooby and the gang should have never started investigating the Clintons. And it's a photo of the Mystery Machine on fire from a car explosion. I know, it's conspiratorial, but boy, is it funny. It's kind of it's a meme for trolling, actually. We'll post it up at conduitnews.com. At Conduit News Twitter, at Conduit News, as well as Facebook, facebook.com/Conduit News. Someone killed Judy. Judy! Someone killed Judy! Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being with us. It's been fun. It's been a great 10 hours of radio this week. We will see you on Monday with bells on. Go to Conduit News for more info and watch our YouTube channel and subscribe. Be safe, Arkansas.